You ate glacial meltwater this morning. Not metaphorically, not poetically, literally. That basmati rice you had last week, it was grown with water that fell as snow on a mountain range most Americans can't find on a map. That wheat flour in your bread? Same story. That bag of jasmine rice your grocery store stocks by the truckload? You can trace a direct line from that shelf to a glacier in the Himalayas. A glacier that is, right now, disappearing faster than at any point in recorded human history. And nobody's telling you this is your problem. But here's what I'm going to show you today. What happens in a mountain range 7,000 miles away doesn't stay there. It travels through shipping lanes, through commodity markets, through grain supply chains, and it lands quietly on your grocery bill. This is not a story about polar bears. It's not a story about rising oceans. It's a story about wheat and rice and the invisible water system that grows roughly a third of the food feeding humanity, including food that ends up on American tables. By the end of this video, you're going to understand why some economists are already calling this the single biggest underpriced risk in global food markets, and why the people whose job it is to warn us are choosing very careful words. The third pole: what it is and why you've never heard of it. Most people know about two poles, the Arctic and the Antarctic. But there's a third one, and it sits in the middle of Asia. The Hindu Kush Himalayan region, spanning Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, Nepal, Bhutan, and Tibet, holds the largest concentration of glaciers and ice outside the polar ice caps. Glaciologists call it the third pole. It is, in the most literal sense possible, a giant frozen water tower sitting above 1.9 billion people. Here's the number that stops me cold every time I look at it. Stat number 1. From ICIMOD/NASA satellite data. Himalayan glaciers are now melting roughly 65% faster than they were in the 1990s. A landmark 2023 study from the International Center for Integrated Mountain Development, using 40 years of satellite imagery, found that ice loss has accelerated dramatically, and that the region's glaciers have been losing mass at rates the mountain range hasn't seen in over 400 years, not since before the Industrial Revolution. 400 years. This isn't a slow drift. This is a cliff. And here's what those glaciers actually do. They act as a natural reservoir system, storing precipitation as snow and ice during winter, then releasing it slowly through the summer melt season. That steady release is what keeps the Indus, the Ganges, and the Brahmaputra rivers flowing when rainfall is low. These rivers don't just sustain ecosystems, they sustain agriculture. They sustain the farms that grow the food that feeds a third of the human species. Now, why should that matter to someone in Columbus, Ohio, or Austin, Texas, or Portland, Oregon? Because your grocery bill is not insulated from what happens to those rivers. Not even close. The rice on your shelf has a passport. Let's talk about something specific: the basmati rice in your pantry. According to USDA data, more than 60% of U.S. rice imports are aromatic varieties from Asia, primarily jasmine from Thailand and basmati from India and Pakistan. And America's rice import dependency has grown significantly. The U.S. now imports over 25% of its total rice supply, up from just 7% 3 decades ago. India alone accounts for nearly 40% of global rice exports. Pakistan is the world's 4th or 5th largest rice exporter. Both countries grow that rice using river systems fed, in significant part, by Himalayan glacial melt. The IPCC's 6th Assessment Report projects that under current warming trajectories, Glaciers in the eastern Himalayas could lose up to 75% of their ice volume by 2100. At 3 degrees of warming, roughly what we're on track for, that number holds. At 4 degrees, some subregions lose 80%. Let that number sit for a second. 75%. Now, glacial retreat doesn't just mean less water, it means wrong-timed water. In the short term, as glaciers melt faster, river flows actually increase, temporarily. Farmers get more water than they expect, crops do well, export volumes stay high. But this is called peak water, the moment before the cliff edge. Once enough glacial mass is gone, summer river flows don't peak. They collapse. When Pakistan's summer flooding hit in 2022, a catastrophic event linked directly to glacial lake outburst floods, Pakistan's rice exports dropped by 20% in 2023. 1 year, 20%. USDA documented it. That's not a future risk. That already happened, and it hit your grocery bill. Apple U umlaut. The commodity chain that connects Gilgit to your grocer.